Hello everyone and welcome to today's Kerbal Space Program video, and oh my god, the timer says it's 25 minutes. But don't worry, for there is a link in the description for a music video version of this. I feel like I have to now say this at the very beginning because people will just complain otherwise that there's no music videos or I don't make music videos anymore. Not the case, guys. There is I think it's like 6 minutes long. It's in the description. You can watch that. It's kind of like a more classic style video, and I actually really like that video. It's one of my favorite ones I've made in terms of, musical format and stuff like that. But I kind of wanted to do this mission a little bit more justice by showing you kind of the whole, not uncut, but showing all the burns. I wasn't able to show all the burns in that video just because of the fact that it was such a big time constraint, so I kind of only showed the major burns. And I wanted to show a little bit more about me planning the maneuver nodes and, the fine-tuning of encounters, things like that. Obviously, this is still 25 minutes long, and I didn't really want to make it much longer than that. So there are, a few things that are kind of not cut out, but like there are no burns cut out, at least I hope there aren't. I might have done a horrible job and missed something when I was editing, but I don't think anything's been left out. But as a consequence of that, things are going to be quite fast-paced and choppy. So, that's this video explained. So, introductions aside, welcome to this video. This is an SSTO, as in a single stage to orbit spaceplane, that's going to go from low Kerbin orbit to Laythe and Eeloo and back again with no mining, no refueling, no trickery or glitches, or there's no bamboozle here, guys. This is all going to be legit. And this is it, the Icarus. I kind of wanted to build an SSTO that used that cockpit there, just because I quite like the way the cockpit, you can turn on the IVA mode and it doesn't actually show any cross-section to the cockpit, if that makes sense. It just makes the glass transparent, which I think it looks quite nice. That was basically the motivation for choosing that. So yes, in case you didn't read the title or look at the thumbnail for some reason, we are going to be sending an SSTO to Laythe and Eeloo. I chose Laythe and Eeloo just because on their own I would consider them quite hard to get to with an SSTO, especially Eeloo. It's very hard to sort of get, it's quite hard to get to Eeloo, I think, in a rocket anyway. Especially when you're not, I understand I probably have a few more hours in the game than most people. So, I don't find it too tough, but I do remember when I was still kind of starting out of the game, or even like, very late on in my time spent playing the game, I find it quite hard to get to. So I kind of thought it'd be cool to have Eeloo and Laythe, just because I consider those places, I still consider those places hard to get to. And when I was first starting out making SSTOs, like pre-Argus, like before I'd even managed to get out of the Kerbin system and I was still making Minmus SSTOs, I always considered Laythe and Eeloo kind of, almost to the point where, it's not even possible, it's not even worth thinking about. So, and here we are today, 2 years later. So, as I'm sure you can imagine, if you didn't see it already, we don't have enough Delta V to just do a regular old mission to Eeloo and Laythe. I know it's kind of gone down now, but when we circularized our orbit at low Kerbin orbit, we only had 6,500-ish meters per second of Delta V, which, is not enough to get to Eeloo and Laythe without doing a lot of, clever things with gravity assists. And that is hopefully kind of what I want to be able to showcase in this video here. I tried cutting it down as short as I could, but I just didn't want to cut out any burns or fine-tuning or anything like that. Any more than I had to, and that's why I kind of made this and the music video version. The reason I don't upload the music video versions as the primary version and then have the commentary as like the unlisted link in the description, which is what I used to do, again when I was making sort of very early stage SSTOs to Minmus and things. The problem is that the music videos generally almost always use copyrighted music, as in the music video for this one uses Crush 40, which was the theme song for Sonic Adventure 2. I was about to say Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, but realised that actually it was also for Sonic Adventure 2. I'm getting sidetracked here. That will have a copyright claim from Crush 40 on it, so there will be ads and things on it. I won't make money off that ad, but that's not what I'm trying to get across here. A drop of a dime, the music company can just decide, actually, we don't want people to see this video now, we're going to mute it or we're going to block it. I've had a lot of videos that got muted. I have a lot of videos that have just been blocked outright, or I've had music videos that have just been taken down. So it is a bit disheartening because there are some videos, and people tweet at me sometimes saying, where's your single stage anywhere, or where's your Laythe SSTO video, or where's your 3-seat Genome. I have to say, I had to be taken down because of the copyright claim. So that's kind of why going forward I've kind of been taking a more commentary style, which I know some people don't like, but unfortunately this is the way it has to be if we were to survive on YouTube, because I don't really like royalty-free music. I don't know. I think royalty-free music just doesn't really pales in comparison to copyright music. I think, I don't know. And it's kind of nice because I kind of build this nice little you get to build a personal relationship with me. It's not really a personal relationship because, you know, I can't hear you, you know. If you ask me a question, you're going to have to type it down. I can't hear what you're saying. So, yeah. What was I talking about? I feel like I got very sidetracked here. You may even notice I've not been talking too much about the commentary footage because I feel like it does most of the talking, you know, just by watching it. You can kind of figure out what's going on. If you want a more detailed video on gravity assists, well, Scott Manley did kind of the definitive video about, it's called something like using gravity assists to save fuel, I think is what it's called. That's a pretty nice rundown of the basic concepts of it. And then I pointed you to the direction of my 60-seat Eeloo SSTO video. I think if you just type in Matt Lowne Eeloo SSTO on YouTube, it will probably be the top result. You know, I did talk a bit more about, you know, the planning of gravity assists there, but in essence, in short, all we're doing is doing a boost down to Eve, which takes a fraction of the fuel to get to compared to Joule, which takes a comparatively high amount of fuel. We're going to slingshot off Eve, boost our orbit nice and high, then swing back down, boost off Kerbin, get our orbit even higher, beyond Dres, but not quite as far as we need it to. Swing round to Kerbin once more, kicking us all the way up to Joule orbit. And that's that maneuver node just done there. So we're warping around. Just do a maneuver node. This is the sort of thing you don't really see in the music video, just very small fine-tuning. You know, burns that, you know, well, that particular burn was in the music video, actually, because that's the one that shows the encounter with Joule. But, you know, for the most part, there's a lot of burns missing that I would have liked to have shown. So that's, I feel like I don't need to explain the justify why I'm making this video anymore. Okay, so yeah, okay, like 0.1 meter per second burn, just because we're doing very, very fine adjustments, because it's much more fuel efficient to do your orbital tweaking and things before the gravity assist, if that makes sense. So to tweak the purple orbit that you can see on that map screen, it's more efficient to do the burn on the blue orbit. Unfortunately, I couldn't always do that. I sometimes had to wait until after the gravity assist to then create maneuver nodes, just because I wanted this to be made in sort of as close to stock as possible. And unfortunately, it's not really possible to be that accurate with a stock maneuver node maker. It's just not quite accurate enough. So if you want to be really, really good, you'd use a mod like Precise Node, but I wanted to try and keep this as stock as possible, so I don't use any sort of tools like that for this mission. However, some of you may have noticed that this isn't actually a stock version of the game. We do have those Kerbal Engineer readouts to the top. That's that light green text. That's just mainly for your benefit, just to show you the amount of delta V I have and just basic stats about the flight more easily, so you always have a reference in case you're trying to do a similar mission to this. And of course, on the right hand side, you can probably see the logos for better time warp, just to make the video, you know, speed it up a little bit. Camera tools and vessel mover I never used. I use those kind of for other things, more cinematic videos I use those for, just to get the right shots. And we've also got environmental visual enhancements with the stock configs, just for these nice visuals. The reason I play largely stock is just because also I get a lot of comments from console gamers saying they're grateful that they can recreate the things they see without mods, and just other people, either they can't run mods or they don't want mods. And me personally, I kind of feel that sometimes it's a bit more impressive to work against the limits of the stock game. So yeah, and people, I kind of like that, you know, validation that, yeah, people like what I'm doing. There's our Eeloo encounter, by the way, on the maneuver node. So that's kind of the motivation for using stock parts. And I always thought, when I was starting out in Kerbal Space Program and trying to watch YouTubers, trying to figure out what the hell I'm supposed to do in this game, I found it quite alienating to find when I found videos and channels that used mods, because I'm like, oh, what is going on? Like, I remember seeing Scott Manley made like an Eeloo SSTO, not an Eeloo SSTO, an Eve SSTO, and I was like, oh my god, that's amazing. And it was like using all these fancy mods, and I just got really confused. And you know, I blacked out, and I just don't know what happened. I just blacked out for 3 days and just woke up in, like, you know, Venice. It was a dark time. So, you know, I don't wish that fate on anyone else. So that's why I don't use mods personally. Got a beautiful visual pack there. You may have noticed Joule has rings there. Just part of the I just completely forgot what mod it was. Part of the environmental visual enhancements mod. Just using the stock config files that it comes with. So Boulder.co, I think. And obviously the other visual mods are Scatterer. And actually, no, that's it. Planet Shine doesn't seem to work for me anymore. I know people say that it has been working for them on KSP 1.3. Hasn't for me for some reason. Speaking of KSP 1.3, you may have noticed that the very beginning of this video, the Ascent, was filmed in KSP 1.2, because then I updated KSP and I forgot. I filmed the Ascent and then just went off and did another few projects in the meantime, then came back. I was like, oh yeah, I updated KSP, didn't I? So that's why. I mean, it would still, this still works in KSP 1.3. I did test it, but that's, someone might mention it, because I do have that watermark in the bottom left. So just, that's why the version changed. It's not because, oh, this particular SSTO you have to use 1.2 because it doesn't work in 1.3. It's not. I mean, it might, but I don't think they actually changed anything in 1.3, did they? So it was just localization. So, you know, that was why there was a version change. Anyway, speaking of changes, we're now changing our SOI to Eeloo's SOI. Yeah, what a great broken up sentence that was. It's quite a big burn. 506, is that what that number says? It's quite a low res preview I've got here. So not a big burn at all. You want to be careful, especially, this is especially true for Eeloo and, I was about to say Mercury, what's it called? Moho, I forgot the name of the planet there. Well, the mistake people often make is they just try and get their orbit to, get an encounter with Eeloo and get it that way. What you can often get is quite expensive burns there. The way you minimize the cost of a burn is by getting your initial orbit that you have before you get the encounter. You want that orbit to as closely mirror that planet's body as possible, because what you're essentially doing, if you're just getting any old random trajectory, which I've probably done on my other Eeloo videos where, efficiency wasn't an issue, what you're going to be careful of is make sure you don't want it to look like it's crossing the planet's orbit, if that makes sense. You want to be like you're sort of kissing the orbit, not crossing straight over it, if that makes sense. If you can visualize that in your mind on the map screen, that's what it should look like, not just crossing over the orbit. I hope that made sense. But I'm sure there's more detailed forum posts about, using better wording and scripts and, spell check and all these things that, these are just witchcraft to me. If you want to know more about that. So yes, that's that. And, well, in case you weren't looking at the screen, I don't know why you would want to just exclusively listen to my voice, but yeah, we're here at Eeloo, blinded by the snow, so I quickly turned down the ambient light that is a feature now in KSP 1.3. I use kind of higher than the normal settings for filming KSP videos when it comes to the ambient light, just because YouTube, as mentioned in my Blunderbird 2 video, YouTube makes videos look a lot darker, so you kind of have to try and take an active role in trying to make it a little bit more glowy. I remember Marcus House was saying he started his own movie series now, Call of the Kraken. I probably got that wrong, but he's made a movie series, and he was saying to me, yeah, I never really realised just how dark YouTube makes videos until I'm actually putting a lot of work into the cinematography and colour correction. I was like, yeah, no, welcome. It's awful, isn't it? And this is like a thing that a lot of channels, especially channels, I make gameplay videos. There are channels that use like actual cinematography and, cameras, and they actually make quality content, not Jebediah going on an EVA and planting a flag. In case you couldn't see, for my blind viewers out there, which I'm sure there are many, we are actually landed vertically here. This is because it's just easier to take off from a vertical position like a rocket when we're on Eeloo, because it has no atmosphere. So if we're trying to do a horizontal landing, we're going to be wasting quite a bit of fuel just accelerating up to speed along the surface before being able to pitch up. And we've only got little landing gear. The nuclear engine at the back does not have a lot of clearance when we pitch it up, so we'd have to get to a fairly high speed, or we'd have to use some sort of ledge. Very stressful. Don't need that in my life, I'm trying to cut back on the stress. So it was easier to just land on the engine. I did deploy the wheels whilst we were landing, just in case, but that was all fine. It was all fine. So phase 1 of the mission is complete. We have landed on Eeloo. We just need to circularize, and then we can head off to the next part of the mission. So you may have noticed that we do have we have 750 units of electric charge, but we don't have any RTGs. We only have those 2 solar panels, which aren't very powerful at Eeloo. Normally, a lot of the times, well, not particularly for this vessel, but larger vessels, this wouldn't be enough to power it. You'd probably need some sort of RTGs. Luckily, this thing is very, very small, very lightweight, doesn't consume a lot of power. And also, the nuclear engine has an alternator inside it, so it recharges whenever we do a burn. So, luckily, electric charge was never an issue in this mission. But just thought I'd mention that, just in case someone was wondering how I'm able to stay charged without an RTG. This ship uses very, very low amounts of power. It doesn't really have any complex reaction wheel systems or power-consuming modules. And we have the alternator in the nuclear engine, and that's it, actually. And although the panels don't work particularly well out here, they work well enough to recharge our electric charge faster than we can use it if we're not doing some complex maneuver. Okay, so I feel like I've not addressed what's going on in the mission again, but we're doing a gravity-assisted duel. We're at a very inclined orbit on Eeloo, so we try to just flatten ourselves out, again, because we want to make sure our encounter with Joule is from an orbit that's quite similar to Joule's, if that makes sense. And a big tilt is the worst thing you can do when you're trying to get a planetary encounter. That's kind of the most expensive thing that you can do. So we want to try and flatten our orbit out, get it sort of on the same plane as Joule's. We still have roughly same sort of shape to it as well. So that's why we did that dual assist. You probably could have got away with just doing a Tyler or Laythe assist and not being able to skip this step, but I wasn't using mods, I wasn't using transfer window planners or tools or anything, so I thought this was just the easiest way, and I wanted to save myself the sanity of doing spending ages trying to get it as perfect as possible. You know, Jebediah is immortal. He doesn't care. We can spend as long as we want in space. He loves it. He loves it. So as I'm sure you can see there, that was an encounter with, not with Kerbin, but with Laythe. Because we're going to Laythe, as I've said, and as you know, I don't know why I'm reiterating this fact. Here we go. So, as you can see, we're crossing it a little bit. If you imagine that orbit line continuing, it wouldn't have been crossing over at too ridiculous an angle. It wouldn't be like perpendicular to the orbit, which would have been very expensive to do. And as you can see, we've got kind of a very nice horseshoe shape encounter with Laythe. If you've just got a straight line going past the planet or moon, it's going to be a very, very expensive maneuver. You want to get it as horseshoe shaped as possible, so it takes the absolute minimum amount of delta V to circularize. Or in this case, it means that we're not going that fast at periapsis, which means we can do some aerobraking, because we don't have that much delta V left, only just over 2,300, which isn't a lot. I mean, it's easily enough to get back, but for people who have less experience with gravity assists or kind of flying things efficiently, it might be a little bit of a struggle. So we're trying to save as much fuel as we possibly can. So we're doing this kind of crazy roll here. It does look a lot more violent and fast than it actually was, because this footage, I'm on time warp for a start, but also this footage is sped up 4 times in post-production just to keep this video at a bearable length. But yeah, rolling just creates a lot more drag and minimizes heating on individual parts at the same time, so it's very useful. So once we've circularized, we can do a few more aerobrake passes just to ensure that we land somewhere on land, because in case you weren't aware, Laythe is predominantly ocean. There's not very much land, not many places this thing can take off from. I had a go to see if it could take off as a seaplane just by landing it in the Laythe Sea, because I thought that'd be quite a cool touch if we could do that. Can't. Spoiler alert, can't do that, guys. Don't worry. Don't try it. You'll waste your time. And yeah, that was it. So I'm going to be aiming for this plot of land here. We're still going very fast, over 2,000 meters per second. So we're going to do a few more aerobrake passes, before we actually, are going slow enough to be able to do get there reasonably controlled, if that makes sense. So we're doing a few more passes here. Yeah, Laythe. I really like Laythe, actually. It's the only place in the Kerbin system, aside from obviously Kerbin, where jet engines work. So it's actually a really good place for flying SSTOs, because you can use the very efficient Rapier engines when flying here. The downside is it takes a lot of fuel to get to Laythe and a lot of fuel to get back from Laythe. But when you're actually here, it's pretty easy, and landing is an absolute doddle, because again, it's got a nice thick atmosphere, not as thick as Kerbin or Eves, but it's thick enough that you can do nice controlled flying, and we get ourselves down to a pretty low speed without any engine power whatsoever. So we can deploy the wheels. This did take a lot of attempts, I'm not going to lie, because those small wheels there don't have the best tolerance, so I took a few attempts. You want to be making sure your Progade marker is as close or pretty much on the horizon line when you touch down, because that's going to minimize your vertical speed, and it's the vertical speed that damages the wheels, not so much the horizontal speed. And now we've touched down, we can use the brakes on the wheels to fully slow ourselves down to a stop, and well, we can do our business out on Laythe. Luckily this thing didn't need a ladder, because it's quite low down anyway, and we can just retract the gear. But that's something to bear in mind if you try and make your own Laythe landers. You can't use jetpacks on this planet, so you have to have a ladder system, or do something like what I do, where you can lower the front wheels and climb on board. But I think if you're able to design a Laythe SSTO yourself, you're probably already aware of this. So we are planting the flag for the Icarus. Have I said it's called the Icarus yet? That's what it's called, by the way. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, that was pretty much the 2 hardest parts of the mission. We only have a small amount of time, a small number of things left to do, so maybe I could just tell another story. Like, people seem to like the story I said on the Behemoth videos. Maybe you guys kind of understand what's going on here and I can just talk. So, now I need to think of something that's happened to me that's funny. Oh, God. Well, the last story was about my time as a student in Sheffield. Maybe this time I could do a story about the time I was a student in Sheffield. How about that for innovation? One of the I'm essentially just trying to think of something funny that's happened when I was a student. I remember there was one actually when we were in first year. We had we decided to have a Christmas party in our flat. Our first year flat consisted of 10 people, and we thought, we'll just throw a big Christmas party. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be right. It's funny. And so we all invited about 10 of our friends, and we realized, we all invited 10 friends each. That's that's actually a lot of people when you times that by 10. Luckily not everyone came, but there was a good 300 people or so showing up. So the party did kind of spill across to our neighbour's flat. Luckily the guys that lived across the floor, there was like 2 flats per floor on this sort of block that I was on, and luckily they were pretty cool as well. So it was a whole floor flat party at this point, and yeah, it was going really well. Everything was going great. And because it was a Christmas party, we had a few Christmas decorations up. And one of these Christmas decorations was a tree that our flatmate bought, and she was so proud of this tree, and she put so much time and effort into it. It was her pride and joy. It was like it was her baby. It was beautiful. What I'm doing here, by the way, is a Tylo gravity assist just to high dual orbit, and then we'll do another Tylo gravity assist to get ourselves back to Kerbin. I know you can just do the one Tylo gravity assist, but I always just found this method a lot easier. That's just what I'm doing here. Yeah, so the party's going well. We decided it would be better to go to a nightclub rather than just stay here all night because it's getting too crowded. We haven't got enough booze. We'll just go to a nightclub instead. So we decided to leave. We say we're back to the flat, and we all leave. And we have a great time, you know, we have a drink or 12 whilst we're there. And I kind of get separated, so I kind of come back with another group of friends that lived on another block, and I just got out of my flat. And I got out of the taxi in my flat. And I come back, I'm kind of a little bit worse for wear. I kind of stumble into the flat. And, you know, I kind of walk in and just sort of walk into the lounge. It's a bit of a mess, obviously, with everyone we had a party there. Kind of just fell to one of the sofas and just sort of face down planted it. And I was just sort of lying there, just thinking about, you know, the meaning of life, as you do. And I just hear this kind of... It's like, it sounds like a dying animal. I like perked up, like, what is that? What animal is in the house? It's my flatmate. He's like, I didn't really see him there at the time, but he was on the floor. He was just like, Matt. I was like, what is it? What is it? And he goes, Matt, someone stole the Christmas tree. And I said, what? He goes, someone stole the Christmas tree, Matt. And I looked to the corner that the Christmas tree was supposed to be sitting in, and there was just a pile of like a few decorations and some pine like needles, and that was it. And I looked at him, he looked at me, and we thought it was the funniest thing we'd ever seen in our lives. So we just started laughing, and we're like, hang on. I'm trying to omit everyone's names from this story, but like she's gonna notice when she comes back. She ain't gonna be happy. We need to sort this. So, you know, as heroic as we are, we marched out of the flat. The first thing we checked was the communal bins. I don't know why, but we did. Searched up and down, you know, the whole garden areas of the flats, you know, the grassy, it wasn't really a garden, but like grassy areas where the taxi ranks were and things. But alas, we searched high and low for a good 10 minutes and yielded nothing. So we came back and admitted defeat, and we're like, she's gonna be so upset. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Anyway, we were sitting in the kitchen. I think at this point we were having some Nutella on toast, because, you know, Nutella on toast just makes everything better. And he was looking at the floor, and he was like, look, there's actually like a trail of pine needles leaving the lounge and going out the flat. We should just follow this, right? So we kind of, it wasn't as curious, it was more like, follow. So we all leave the flat, follow the trail, get into the lobby, and the trail just kind of ends sort of in the elevator areas, and it's just there, that's the trail ending. And I was like, oh, okay. So then he was like, I was just thinking, like, you know, this is a complete waste of time. It's gone. We just have to accept. And I feel a hand on my shoulder. And I turn around and he's looking at me in the eye. He just goes, Matt, call the lift. And I was like, what? He goes, call the lift, Matt. Call the lift. And I was like, okay. So I called the lift. By the way, you can see our circularization there was a mere 302 meters per second. So we have a pretty nice encounter there, just kissing it on our orbital periapsis. So we're not crossing over at all there, which gives us a nice efficient encounter. Means that our periapsis speed is going to be quite low, so we can aerobrake at this point. Anyway, back to the story. Occasionally I just look over and start dictating what's going on. So I call the lift and he goes, you know, it's a stupid idea. Yeah, I'll leave. So yeah, he leaves. I do stand there. I was like, wow, he must have been onto something here. So I was standing there just thinking about the meaning of life again, as you do. And the lift doors go bing, and they open. And there, inside the lift, inside the lift is the Christmas tree. Complete with all of its decorations, and the lights were on as well, because it was like a battery-powered fairy light system. So I was just like, and, you know, I've got to admit, guys, I've never been so excited in my whole life. Not at all. The only time I've ever been more excited was when I agreed to sign up with lootcrate.com/Matt, where you can get a discount for loot. Okay, let's not rehash that again. So I was like, hey. Oh god, I said his name. I'll bleep that out. I said, it's in the left. And like, in my sort of mad excitement, I just kind of dived forward I thought I was going to be picking it up. I kind of more rugby tackled it and snapped it in two. But whatever, this was a moment of victory, okay? This was not a time to mourn. So we scooped it up, doing a lot more damage than if we just left it in the lift, to be honest. Scooped it up, kind of chucked it in the corner, and then we found some like duct tape and things and just sort of taped it back together. It was all wonky. It was awful. And it was very cruel. It was not good. It was not good. And she came home, and to my amazing surprise at the time, though, looking back, I can understand that she noticed straight away, and she was just like, kind of, what happened to the tree? What have you guys done to the tree? And we should have said, oh, it was stolen, blah, blah, blah. But we said, oh, we fixed it. Because, it's just like, we weren't in the best frame of mind. So all she'd left this beautiful tree that she'd bought and she'd decorated. It was pristine. She came back from a night. She didn't drink, by the way. She wasn't even drunk. She came back from the night out, and she's just like, what have you done? And we just said, oh, we've fixed it. And that was a story. So, let's talk about the video. Well, we're kind of here now. This thing was actually horribly unstable in flight, actually. Obviously, my tests, when testing it when empty, were not thorough enough. This thing flies like a cow when it's empty. I did pump the tiny amount of fuel that was remaining to the nose cone, but it wasn't so much avail. As you can see here, it's just spazzing out. So it took a lot. And there's going to be a few random cuts. Look, it's flying backwards, but then it flies forwards. So eventually I managed to get it into a nosedive. Once you can do that, you can pick up some speed and try and get it out of the stall. At which point I'm using my budget of remaining fuel very, very sparingly. Did another quick save there because I smashed into the control tower the first time. And we managed to get it down. So bit of a hairy landing. Could have been filmed a little bit, could have been done a little bit better if I had to spend a bit more time testing this thing. But, it worked. And that was this mission. So, again, I didn't want to do too much talking about the actual specifics of this mission because I kind of wanted the footage to do the speaking, because this is really not a tutorial, appropriate for a tutorial, I think. If you want to be doing something like this, you probably should have a few hours under your belt. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. There are, on the screen now, top left is the music video version of this, which I really, really am proud of. Top right is my 60-seat EELOO SSTO video, where I do talk a little bit more about the process of gravity assists. And then bottom right was just specially selected by YouTube's algorithm just for you. So other than that, have a great day, and I hope you enjoyed. Twitter, Patreon, Discord, all in the description, and goodbye.